When did the softball program start at St. Bonaventure, and what made you interested in coaching the team?
It started in the early 1980s. Actually, I think even a little bit earlier than that. I think there was a club team before that. But I started, my first season was the spring of 1982, and it was mostly because I heard there was an opening, and I had coached girls high school softball at my previous teaching job out in Minnesota, and thought it might be fun, so I pursued it, and they hired me, and I took it from there.
Now, where did you go to school, and what's sort of your background with athletics, especially baseball and softball?
Well, I went to Lawrence University, which is a small college in Appleton, Wisconsin, not far from Green Bay. Everybody, of course, has heard of Green Bay. And I played baseball 4 years, all 4 years there, and had also played baseball in high school before that. So I had a long background in playing baseball. And um, then I went to graduate school at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, and my first teaching job was at a private high school in Minneapolis. And that's where I got into coaching girls softball, and I was an assistant girls softball coach for the 3 years that I was at that private high school. And then from there I came to Bonaventure and continued my softball coaching career.
And why did you come to Bonaventure?
Because that's where a job was available, and it was a tight job market back in the 1980s, and it still is. And so sometimes you just have to go where the job is. And somebody, I think maybe it was from Bonaventure, asked me what I knew about St. Bonaventure, and I said, well, I've heard of Bob Lanier, and that was about the sum total of my knowledge of the university when I was first contacted to apply.
What was the atmosphere like for the first team? The first time you guys were officially a team, you played your first game. What was that like?
Um, it was a lot different environment than it is now. I can't specifically remember the first game, but just the early seasons were a lot different than they are now. And the facilities that we played on were much inferior to what we have now. Um, the equipment, the budget, the scheduling. Um, I think that women's softball back in that time was kind of in its infancy at the college level. It was really just getting started, and so I don't think anybody had really the facilities or the resources that they do now. And so it's the game's changed a huge amount, not surprisingly, over the course of a generation.
Now, was the program always Division One, or what did it start out as?
Um, it became Division One, I think, probably in the late '80s. I'm not sure when, but our first few years were just probably the equivalent of Division Three. We were not in any kind of a league. We played a totally independent schedule, and the only teams that we played were regional teams around here: Canisius, Niagara, UB, Buff State, Mercyhurst. Even played some community colleges. We played Hilbert and Genesee Community College. I think the farthest we ever traveled was to Elmira College, and we took no overnight trips.
How did you get your players for the team?
Uh, I would go over to the admissions office and go through the files and see the biographies of accepted students and find out which ones had played softball in high school and invite them to come out to for the team. And then every spring, I just put up a sign-up sheet over in the RC. I didn't do any recruiting. It was just simply whoever was here, whoever happened to come here as a student. I did get some really good players from women's basketball, though, because the basketball program, even at that time, was becoming closer to Division One. And so a lot of or at least some of the basketball players were also really good high school softball players. So I got some players there, too, from that source.
Um, how do you think the game has changed over the years from where you were the head coach to now? What do you think has changed, not only about the players, but about the game?
Well, the skill level is the big thing. The skill level is 10 times better now than it was in 1981. Well, that may be an exaggeration, but it's significantly better now. Well, let me put it that way. Um, I see a big difference in your position, the pitching position, where when I was starting out, we never saw anybody that could pitch real hard, and a lot of pitchers used um, the slingshot method. You know what that is?
Yeah.
It's just coming straight back, and it's not doing the full circle. It's just coming
Right.
straight back and throwing. And I only had one pitcher in my 4 years who used a windmill windup. All the rest of them were just slingshot pitchers. And we faced quite a few that were like that too. But nowadays you'd see nobody pitching like that. Obviously, everybody uses the full windup because they can get a lot more arm speed that way and a lot more velocity on the pitch. And I think in terms of both power hitting, I think players are stronger now and they hit the ball harder and they hit it farther. And also in the small ball game, you see a lot more bunting now than I remember. We almost never bunted, as I recall. And I don't think many other teams did either, but now that's obviously an integral part of the game. And just, yeah, facilities are a lot different. I know that at our home field, and we played down in McBride Jennings, but we didn't have a field. We would just go and throw 4 bases down wherever we could find a spot almost. And then we had a portable backstop that we could just wheel around, an old rusty old thing that was falling apart. That's all we had. And a couple of benches, and that was about it. We didn't have any permanent burned-in lines, left and right field lines. We certainly did not have a fence, not even a temporary snow fence. Didn't have dugouts, didn't have a press box, none of the amenities that we have today. So it was pretty basic. I guess I'd say that.
What's your main role now as the assistant coach?
Well, I think I try to be, first of all, sort of the academic resource person and to help the players in any way I can academically, and that would include, in particular, helping them with their writing skills, which is one area that I could probably help them with regardless of what course it is. Also to proctor exams on the road as I do, and sometimes if a player is having trouble with a particular professor and asks me if I can intervene somehow or at least give her suggestions about how to deal with the situation. That's come up a few times, and so I try to, offer whatever help I can in that regard. But then otherwise, basically to do what Coach House asked me to do, and so whatever that might be, if it's hitting grounders in a star drill, which I really enjoy doing, that's really fun. I love the star drill, and some of the other contests that we have with the bucket drills and everything, that's always fun to do. And or hitting fly balls, or catching in, or throwing a little batting practice, or whatever needs to be done. And then coaching first base, which I also enjoy a lot. It gives me a chance to support the players that make it down to first base, and to make a few loud comments every now and then. It's always fun too.
Now you talk about being an academic advisor. So what was it like for you when the team was the #1 academic team 2 years in a row?
That was definitely a high point in my career, that's for sure. And I know Coach House would agree that it was for him too. That was really special to be the #1 team twice in a row, and we even had a little recognition ceremony at halftime of a basketball game where we were publicly recognized for being the #1 team. So that was nice publicity for the program. And I know that the athletic administration was really proud of that, and the athletic director and other athletic administrators, when they meet with alumni groups or with their other ADs or whatever, would often highlight that. So that was good publicity for the program too. This is a very nice achievement, and something I'm still very proud of.
Now, who and what are some of the most rewarding times? You've had a lot of obviously successful seasons, successful players, but what are some of the more rewarding ones?
The more rewarding times, or
Times, players,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I hesitate to name any specific names of players because I know I'll forget somebody that I should have mentioned. But there are memorable players every year, and I think, again, Coach House does a really good job of recruiting players who will fit in and who won't cause problems. And I know he stays away from head cases, even players that he might be able to get who are really good players, but they've got some sort of personality or behavioral baggage, and he won't take them. And so I really respect that, and so that makes everybody's job a lot easier. And it's always hard for me every year to see the seniors leave because, of course, I've been with them for 4 years in most cases, so that's always kind of a nostalgic day. or a nostalgic time, and it's coming up now pretty soon for us too. um, I guess maybe in terms of competitive highlights, obviously making the A10s was probably would definitely be the highlight. I think we've made it three times, 3 or 4 times in my time as an assistant coach. Back in the day, in the early '80s, there was no A10
Right.
playoffs, so that was irrelevancy then. But yeah, just getting to the A10s, and then I still remember the time we won our first A10 game, which was like a 12 or 13 inning extra inning, 1-0 game against Sage Hills, where both pitchers were just lights out, and Christine Kelleher pitched the whole game for us, and boy, that was spectacular, winning that game. And I think at the time it was, and maybe still is, the longest game that they've ever had in the A10 playoffs. 12 or 13 innings, that's quite a stretch. That's
Yeah.
the equivalent of almost 2 games, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question. Obviously you're a professor here, you're
Mm-hmm.
also a coach. You don't really see that anymore, especially at the Division 1 level.
Mm-hmm.
So, what makes you want to do both and how do you think the two coincide together?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and you're right. It's very rare. In fact, I've even wondered if there are any others
Yeah.
doing this kind of thing. I'm sure that there are no classics professors who are also Division coaches. Um, but I'm sorry, repeat the rest of the question again.
How do you think that they coincide together?
I think that they go together really well because I think it's good for students to see their professors in different contexts instead of just behind a lectern in a class.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for students to see that their professors do things other than just blabber away for 75 minutes twice a week or whatever. But I also think it's good for professors to see students in other contexts too, other than just sitting in a class or just having an academic relationship with them. And so, to me, that's the biggest advantage of coaching because I can see, I can get into a different context with a group of students. And the softball context is a really good one because just because of the fact, as I was mentioning before, that we generally get really good student athletes playing softball, players who are smart and do well in school, but also players who are just really nice people. I mean, I think we've had just some really, really nice softball players who have been fun to be with. And you can joke around with a little bit, and that sort of thing, and high five and all that sort of camaraderie is very enjoyable.